Hello everyone, welcome to episode 12 of Cess's Corner. Today I had the pleasure of sitting down with a very dear friend of mine and one of the most talented broadcasters in the world today. She is a member of the Nutley Hall of Fame and a former Belleville Italian-American Woman of the Year, and she has also been a recipient of an Excellence in Journalism from the University of Maryland. She has been with WFAN, Westwood One Radio, TNT. She has also been with the New England Sports Network and spent many years with Madison Square Garden Network as well. And currently today, she is the lead sports anchor of Fox 5 and the host of Fox 5's Sports Extra. Check out the best of the one and only Tina Cervasio.
Tonight on Sports Extra, busy day for the Yankees and Mets with opposite results. Mets radio play-by-play voice Wayne Randazzo joins us to discuss DeGrom's finger and broadcasting during the COVID era of sports. And the Islanders are on to the round of 16. Isles co-owner John Ledecky will be here. We'll find out how he's watching the playoffs and how you'll be watching the Islanders during the 2021-2022 season at the new UBS Arena. We're talking playoffs on Sports Extra, which starts right now.
Hello everyone, welcome to another edition of Cess's Corner. And today I have the absolute honor of sitting with and having the opportunity to interview an old friend of mine, no stranger to all of you, I'm sure. You've seen her on TNT, you've seen her on CBS Sports Network, and of course currently we see her most of the time on Fox 5, the lead sports anchor for Fox 5 and the host of Sports Extra, the one and only Nutley native Tina Cervasio.
Yes, go Maroon Raiders, Anthony.
Yeah. Well, let's not get started on Go Bucks.
Or go Bucks. Hey, my family was all from Belleville.
Exactly,
so.
exactly. And first and foremost, thank you so very much, Tina, for this opportunity. I know you have a very, very, hectic schedule, needless to say, and I greatly appreciate you being able to accommodate a little bit of time for me today on this beautiful day. And I tell you, I mean, where to begin? I mean, you name it, you have done it already in a remarkable sports broadcasting career thus far. And I mean, you got so much more ahead of you. But I mean, to take a moment to kind of reflect on where you've been thus far, what you've accomplished thus far, I mean, is incredible within itself, and I want to delve in to that if I may. But I mean, currently again, lead sports anchor at Fox, Sports Extra, one of my favorite shows to begin with, and I love the way you open every show. So, we feel that that enthusiasm, that sports nut fan enthusiasm. You can't beat it. It makes you feel good, especially with everything that we're all going through this year, this crazy 2020, and 7-time New York Emmy award-winning broadcaster. I mean, your resume and your list of accomplishments are just absolutely incredible, and I congratulate you on such an incredible career. And I, having been a big sports fan for as long as I can remember, having of course an aspiration to get into sports broadcasting myself, and having done a lot of stuff on the local level, as you're aware, I mean, I look at you and you're without question a tremendous source of inspiration, for me and for so many others. And
is it great just to talk sports?
There's nothing like, and get paid for it. I mean,
yes, of course.
You know what I'm saying? You can't beat. I mean, you just can't beat that. There's no question about it. And when I think about everything that you've done thus far, your time, of course, with MSG, with the Knicks, you were there for a long time. You've done field reporting for the NFL on Fox, field reporting for NBA basketball on TNT, the first lead full-time female host, I understand, on Sirius XM NBA radio. And thank God for Sirius XM and satellite radio, one of the greatest inventions in the history of mankind,
Amazing.
Next to the cell phone. And I would think we could all agree on that. I mean, and I remember when you were really first starting to break into the business. I remember, especially on weekends, driving around, whatever I was doing, and I'd have WFAN on, And then all of a sudden, the 2020 sports updates, and there's
That's
Tina
my first
Cervasio, and I'm like, wait a minute,
That
I know
means
who
you
that
were
is.
also listening late. It was like the overnights though, because I was
In the beginning,
fill-in
yes.
for the overnight.
Yes.
So I'd work the midnight to 6 a.m. shift.
But you also
a couple times I got in the daytime.
you also filled in period, because I remember a
Yeah.
couple times an early Saturday morning I would catch it.
That's right.
So it was
6 to
mostly
noon. The 6 a.m. to noon.
mostly on the weekends, and it was great. I was like, wait, I know who that is. And of course, you and I had first met back when we were both doing some work for Recchio Publications.
Yes.
When the Belleville Times and the Nutley Sun were the Belleville Times and the Nutley Sun.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And that a whole different era back
So
then.
what was the Bloomfield record? What Bloomfield or
It was
Glenridge record?
Bloomfield Life, I think, wasn't it?
Okay. Was it Bloomfield Times and Glenridge record? There was a record in there, but it was
Yeah,
also Bloomfield
Glenridge.
Yeah.
Yep. And I remember I had the opportunity to do I was doing some copy editing back then and some freelance writing, and that's how we, started to get to know each other. And of course, I've had the pleasure of being good friends with your father and for a number of years, and I mean, just the Belleville roots are just remarkable. So, we go back a ways, and, we have a lot in common in terms of our love for broadcasting and for sports as a whole. So with that said, how did it really all begin for you in terms of your love and interest in broadcasting?
I always loved sports. I was always the one, watching college football on Saturday or college basketball with my dad. My late grandfather, Rocco Cervasio, was a big Giants fan, so we loved the Giants. My late grandfather on my mother's side, Angelo Carino, they were big Yankees fans, but there were also like a lot of Mets fans with the Carino family. So it was like all these baseball fans. But I used to love the stories. My grandfather, my Grandpa Carino, Papa Carino, would talk about they had box seats for their company at a contracting company. They would see, Joe DiMaggio and all the legends, They would go watch them. Like, you saw Joe DiMaggio play? And so there was always sports in our family, and both my parents, well, my mother was an educator. She was a teacher and principal. My dad was a businessman, but a lot of my uncles and cousins were coaches.
Yep.
High school coaches, couple on the college level. Mark Carino on my mom's side, college basketball. Yes. Now he's an athletic director, also coaching still the men in Caldwell.
Yes, he is.
And his brother Carl was just a legendary Belleville High School softball coach.
Over 500 wins?
Yeah, my uncle Joe, which is my dad's sister's husband, he was a football coach and a crew coach and a wrestling coach. That's where he was the legend. He was a legendary wrestling coach in Nutley. So I just grew up at our family events. Sometimes we're going to sporting events. And how can I forget my godfather, John Sineski, longtime head football coach of the Belleville Buccaneers.
Absolutely.
So Friday nights we would go to Belleville Bucks games, and I would have my blue and gold pom-poms, and then on Saturday mornings we would go to Uncle Joe's freshman football games, and the afternoon, whatever season, we would go around and watch the uncles and the cousins, and that's how the family we would do things. So I love sports. And then a little bit older, my dad took our family to the Rose Bowl, 1986 Rose Bowl. UCLA beat Iowa, and we stayed in the same hotel as the Iowa parents, so we were rooting for Iowa, because clearly coming from Nutley and Belleville, New Jersey, do you have rooting interest in Iowa or UCLA? Not really.
Of course.
But I just loved it. And what was fun that whole week, my dad helped me prepare for it. Like, who was the running back, and who's the quarterbacks, and who was this, and the coaches. And my dad said, you should really look into a career in sports because you love it. And you should find something you love to do and get somebody to pay for it. So that's why I said it's great talking sports and getting paid for it.
Absolutely.
Because that's what we love to do. So that's where the inspiration came. Really, where I was like pursuing a job in sports, and I had always saw Barbara Walters, Diane Sawyer as inspirations. I wanted to be a broadcaster of some type, and I saw what they were doing in news and just loved their interviews mostly, and obviously their reporting, but I loved their interviews and thought as I was going along and taking English courses and writing courses and public speaking in high school, well, why can't I do those interviews with athletes? There weren't a lot of women at the time. I had just sort of missed the Phyllis George era. My father used to tell me a lot about her. And when I got to college, though, bam, that was it. We had cable TV in my freshman year in the main lounge, and my floor mates, our whole floor was filled with a lot of the women's soccer players. And who was from Miami, that was a Dolphins fan. And who was from Texas, they were Cowboys fans. And I was the Giants fan. And there's a Cleveland Browns fan too. A girl was from the Ohio area. And we would, fight over games and quarrel with each other. And that's when Leslie Visser on the sidelines of Monday Night Football.
Yes.
Linda Cohen anchoring Sports Center. And she had her New York accent. And I knew she was from Long Island.
That's right.
Big hockey fan. And then you saw Hannah Storm as the host on I missed the NBA on NBC and the theme music. We played that a lot on NBA radio.
Bob Costas.
Yes, well, of course. But those women, seeing those women really inspired me. But what was interesting too, just kind of going back, Jim Lampley, when he kind of invented the sideline reporter, and I remember seeing that in college games when he was doing and I was younger, and he was doing these games, and he was with the fans, and then he was on a rooftop of one of the domes, and then he was on the field. And I was like, well, that's cool. I want to get on the field. And then you saw Leslie Visser get on the field.
Yes.
So, those were all of the little seeds that were planted that I was observing growing up and what inspired me. And then at Maryland, I was majoring in journalism. But then I started, covering the sports and doing the sports angle and taking classes in sports writing and sports journalism.
Incredible. You were basically surrounded by sports growing up. So how could you not obviously love it? And then of course you took that love to, the level that you've taken it, and it's incredible. Now, with everything that you have done thus far in sports broadcasting, what would you say do you love about sports broadcasting the most currently?
I love interviewing players and coaches. Even if the interview is not for broadcast. So recently, and I've seen this in my last 3 years, I've been doing Army football for CBS Sports Network.
Yes.
And I just love defensive coordinators. I just love what I learned from them, how technical they get when we're in meetings. Yeah, so of course now our meetings are on Zoom or conference calls. But we used to sit at a table like this in the head coach's office in Jeff Monken in the football complex at West Point. And there's been 3 different defense coordinators the last 3 years, and currently it's Nate Woody. And I just love the technicalities, and I love when the D coordinator's on the field. So then in our meetings, I ask them questions and stuff I look for on the field. So it's just, I feel like I'm always learning. So it's almost selfish, and I'm so lucky because even though when I'm doing an interview, say for a show, it's for the public to learn, but I get to learn too.
That's
I'm
right.
with them too. This
Absolutely.
is what I want to know about the Giants, so I'm asking this question. This is what I know. My friend of mine wants to know about the Nets and their new coach and Steve Nash and what can he do and what. So that's why it's great to talk sports. So then I filter that into my interviews to get what fans want, and then. But yeah, I just love the interview process and learning from that and trying to pull back the layers a little bit. And I like it in a more calm atmosphere, like I said, either off camera or a sit-down interview, like we're doing now.
Yep.
Because it's tough, the whole thing at the lockers and the clubhouse and post-game. That stuff is crazy. Love it. I love interviewing a player after a win. Don't get me wrong.
Yes.
But you can peel back the layers and get more stuff when it's a relaxed atmosphere.
Absolutely. And with that said, you mentioned, of course, all of your family influences in terms of leading you, to this career path. And what would you say has been some of the other influences that have impacted your career path in sports broadcasting thus far?
I think when I was first out of college, I was a runner many times for Fox Sports. So the NFL on Fox would be at the old Giant Stadium.
Yep.
Yeah, and I would work in the trucks. It was $50 a day. And I did the same did a lot of sports. So Fox had the NHL at the time, and I would drive myself to Philadelphia. I'll never forget. That was the only Stanley Cup I've seen in person. This is 1997. Yes, I think so. Yes, and in Philadelphia, and I was a runner, and I got $50. Like I said, I would photocopy for the producers or the talent. I would bring coffee or water to the talent. Sometimes pick the talent up at their hotel in my car, and that opportunity by being a runner for Fox Sports, and I kept doing it even when I was working on the Fan. I would work an overnight shift from 12 a.m. till 6 a.m. at WFAN on the air, so I've kind of broken in a little bit.
Yep.
And I would still go to the Fox Sports trucks and be a runner for the World Series. Because there was the Yankees had a few World Series at home. So
Yes, they
I
did.
would literally go from Astoria, Queens, that's where they were at the time, drive to the Bronx, and then work that day. I was exhausted, but it was so worth it because I got to meet people like Joe Buck. And I also got to meet a lot of producers when maybe they were just starting in the industry themselves and they were associate directors, or they were working as an assistant with the Elvis editor, which is the replay editor.
Yes.
And I would meet them, and now they're executive producers wherever they are, whether it's Fox or ESPN or in other places, CBS. So during that time, there were two people I met, which was wonderful. One of them was Brian Waldinger, on NFL Network, and he just kind of took me under his wing, taught me all the technical stuff about football, but also was like a really inspiring rah-rah kind of guy. And he was breaking into the business, becoming an analyst himself. He had just retired. So he was just an encouragement, have somebody like that played in the NFL, but was also showing me how he was learning the ropes. That was very cool. And then I had the opportunity a couple times to work before there was NFL Network and NFL Red Zone. When DirecTV first started having the NFL.
Yes.
I worked a couple of shows that would wrap around all of those NFL games on DirecTV. And I met Spencer Tillman through that. And he was another just great source of knowledge and encouragement. Again, another former NFL player that was taking me under his wing, both teaching me about the game, but also about how to be a good broadcaster, communicator, likable on TV. And I would hope that those very early in my career, those two examples, and I appreciate so much for what they did for me, being mentors like that, sort of helped pushing me along when I wasn't making a lot of money and living at home, and my friends had these jobs and cars and living in New York City, and I was making, $50 a day at times. That was it, being a runner for Fox.
But you were enjoying what you were doing.
I did.
And look what it's led to, obviously. And I mean, that's just, let's face it, that's the nature of this profession is, you get started at the, at the bottom, and you're doing things like that. But you basically followed the traditional course, if you will, of how to break into the broadcasting profession, and all of that running, all of that hard work, all that leg work, etc. Obviously, it all paid off, but you accomplished a lot from the standpoint of, like you said, you did a lot of networking, met a lot of people, and needless to say, that all came to help you as you continue to progress in your career, and more opportunities, came about, subsequently. So, I mean, it's, the question would be now is, what are they saying now? And they think, what I'm saying?
I always check in with them. Now I'm going to check in with them again. I do check in with them, run into them. They'll see something of mine. And, that's what's so great about social media, too, because then they'll pop up like any random day. So then you get back to them real quick. And of course you talk to them personally, but that's what's great about the social media, because they'll pop up with something.
Exactly.
Oh, I got it, so it's great.
So now, in breaking down a little further everything that you've done thus far, we gotta talk a little bit about the time that you spent with the New England Sports Network as the field reporter for the arch rival Boston Red Sox, and you having come from the Belleville Nutley roots and Yankee fanism in your blood and so forth, and now you get this opportunity to go to work for the Red Sox. And I mean, how do you describe that experience? Because you were there for a few years, and it was during, of course, the time when the Red Sox were really coming into their own and trying to conquer the quote-unquote evil empire of the Yankees. And we all know they eventually did, unfortunately, in 2004. But nonetheless, tell me about that experience with the Red Sox.
Well, the luck was on my side, and I think this is the only way I was able to get the job, because I was a Mets and Orioles fan. Yet I was so nervous to tell them during my interview, because I mean, I became a Mets fan when they beat the Red Sox in the World Series in 1986.
1986.
So that was number one.
World Series ever.
And then I thought Orioles. Oh my God, they're the AL East, but it wasn't the Yankees. You know, that was the key. And I was an Orioles fan because at Maryland, I was a Mets fan growing up, and then I went to Maryland and just was able to go to Orioles games and was able to see them up close. And Camden Yards was new then, so I got to go to Camden Yards.
Beautiful place.
And Cal Ripken was there at the time.
Of
I
course.
mean, he broke the streak when I was in college. So that's why I was an Orioles fan. So that was sort of on my side, but of course there were plenty of Bostonians and New Englanders that just assumed I was a Yankees fan because I was from New York, and my husband is a Yankees fan. Lots of Yankees books; those are all his. My Red Sox books got moved down to the bottom for some reason, but
they're in the right spot.
But no, it was. What I loved about that job is I got to learn and be a part of course, an historic franchise. But it was an opportunity for me to live and see how athletes live. I was at every single game for 2 years, and every day I was there for spring training and every single postseason game. I saw how they lived. I met their wives and children. I met their families, their parents. Then we're talking about the players and a lot of the coaches, of course, too. I saw what it was like to get on an airplane, the hours that they keep. I mean, you get on an airplane after, a 5-hour Yankees Red Sox game. Sometimes you're getting on an airplane 12:30 in the morning, and then you go to another city and you get to your hotel room at 6:30 a.m. and they have to play the next day.
Yep.
And I don't think people realize the grind that baseball players do go through, and
it is rigorous.
That's why they make the money they do, because they make a lot of money. But what I also learned, which was so authentic, was that they are human beings. They have families. They are real people, and they actually, and I know, Red Sox fans and Yankees fans don't believe this. Believe me, when they get between those two lines and they are on the diamond, they hate the Yankees and the Yankees hate them, and it is about winning, winning, winning. And there are some personal issues with some people. Hey, there isn't all businesses.
Yeah, that's human nature.
They don't care that I was from the New York area. I had Yankees fans in my family. Who grew up a Yankees fan, and who was from Cincinnati and was playing in Boston, and it was just about a team, and this is my job, and my job is to win and play the best I can to help this team win or help my teammate be better. And it was so neat to see that people from all over the world, I love how international the baseball players are. Yep. I was always trying to speak Spanish with the players from the Dominican, and David Ortiz would yell at me a lot, "You need to practice your Spanish, and I'll buy you Rosetta Stone," and he would speak Spanish to me sometimes. I'm like, oh my God, I have to practice.
Big Poppy.
I have to practice more. But it was that which was so neat, to seeing the human side every single day. And but that was a challenge, and I think that job was one of the greatest challenges, just because of the grind and the hours and every day. And baseball players are unique. They're very regimented. A lot of them are OCD. That makes them who they are.
That's right.
It's not a flaw. And guy could go 3 for 4, have a game-winning hit. But I interviewed him yesterday. So he's running off the field. I'm like, oh, let me get you. And he's like, oh, you interviewed me yesterday. Disappears. Well, oh my God, who do I get next? Oh, you get the guy who was 0 for 4, but they're still on the winning team, so I just grab whoever I can. So that was a challenge, being on the field and trying to grab players like that after a game, even after a win. It wasn't always rainbows and butterflies and unicorns and things like that. But they ultimately won a World Series in 2007 when I was there. So I experienced the champagne. I have a ring. So it was just an amazing experience. And I do still keep in touch with David Ortiz and his family. I've been to his foundation events in the Dominican Republic. When we used to have events, when he would come to New York, to get an award or be in an event, I would get to catch up with him and his wife Tiffany. I've seen his children grow up.
I mean, incredible time, obviously. And you mentioned their World Series victory in 2007. That's when they swept the Colorado Rockies, and of course, that was their second World Series victory after 2004, when they had that dramatic comeback against the Yankees, being down 3-0. To this day, I still can't figure out how that happened. I think if I live to be 500, I don't think I'll ever be able to figure out how that happened. I mean, but nonetheless, it did happen, and and they went on then to beat St. Louis in that World Series, and 3 years later, when you were there, winning that World Series against the Rockies, and I mean, let's face it. I mean, my dislike for the Red Sox has always been sports based, obviously, and I mean
that whole surrounding area, Yawkey Way.
You mentioned, or Big Papi David Ortiz. I mean, I can only imagine how many times you had to interview him after.
He never said no. He was great.
Well, how could he turn you down? I mean, he was always hitting those walk-off home runs. So he had to be the one for you to interview. So he had to know that.
He was the best. He was an outlier too, because a lot of those guys were like just troublesome, pain in the neck in the locker room, or early on asking, questioning my knowledge. And there were times in sports, and I always tell this to classes, college classes, when I talk to them. If a player says, "Oh, I'll be right back," you've lost him. You've lost him. You will not get that player back again.
I could
David
imagine.
Ortiz was an exception. I'll be right back. And then he would go, I'd be like, I lost him. All of a sudden, he would pop back. Oh, Tina, what do you need? Okay, there we go. So he was a special one.
And he's definitely, an amazing character. And to think, I mean, he was just released one day out of the blue by the Minnesota Twins, and the Red Sox picked him up and he went on a tear and became a Yankee killer, to say the least. When I see him on Major League Baseball Network and wherever else he appears these
working
days,
with A-Rod.
it's just he's become a very good analyst in his own right. And A-Rod,
he knows how to hit. He knows hitting and watching and seeing pitches.
And A-Rod too has become a very good analyst in my opinion.
Yes.
He's really grown into that. Moving on from there, I mean, once you left the Red Sox, you headed back to your roots, MSG, the Knicks, and being a part of how can we put that? The carousel, if you will, for lack of a better word.
Covered a lot of NBA coaches.
Yes. Needless to say, but the beauty was, despite the chaos going on the court and behind the court, behind the scenes, if you will, you got the chance to work in another form of hallowed ground, that being, of course, the greatest arena in the world, Madison Square Garden. There's nothing like going to Madison Square Garden, no matter what you're there for.
Yeah, whatever event, concert.
Exactly.
Ice skating.
When just having the privilege of being in that facility, every day, and you were there for like 9-10 years almost with the Knicks, 2008, 2017. I mean, tell us a little bit about that experience.
It's the best thing. The thing about the Garden, I'll never forget. I think it was my third year. This is my second year. It was the last game of the season, home at the Garden. They were trying to win like their 22nd or 23rd game. I mean, that tells you the season.
Yes.
That place was rocking. It was so loud and so exciting. 23 wins. They've been out of the playoff contention since March. And early March, and that energy and those fans, and that's the one thing I love about the Knicks. Those fans will never give up on that team, and they always try to be so positive. Like, I feel like the sky was falling like a couple of weeks ago with the Yankees and their 6-game losing streak, and they were out of the playoffs, and everybody was just doom and gloom. But like the Knicks were like, well, maybe tomorrow, and maybe they'll get this free agent. Like, they were always just clinging to those 2 championships. Well, Clyde's there, and I saw Roman Rowe the other day. There's luck in the building. So that's what I just loved about that experience, and it always lifted me up knowing that, give those Knicks fans hope, so no matter. But I was there the last great is when you win a championship, but they won 54 games in the 2012-13 season, got the second round of the postseason. I mean, that team was championship caliber, but when they were playing the Indiana Pacers, I mean, and there's nothing you could do about injuries. Like, a dude gets hurt, like, it's one thing if somebody plays bad. But I mean, Tyson Chandler had like a fracture in his neck. We didn't know when he's playing. No wonder he wasn't playing well. Good defense. And the irony was Amari Stoudemire and Carmelo Anthony were playing great, but you need 5 guys on the floor. You can't have 2.
Of course. Yeah.
And then they were they were playing Amari off the bench because you needed a shooter off the bench because not injured. But J.R. Smith could not hit the broadside of a barn all of a sudden after being 6th man of the year. Horrible postseason. Who else? Jason Kidd went from playing like he was 27 to 47 in the course of a series. So it just, that broke my heart when they lost that series to the Pacers. And, but that was a great year. That was great because they brought Kirk Thomas back. They brought some of the 90s guys back, Marcus Camby.
That's right.
They
yes.
were, Thomas was hurt and out for the rest of the year by the time the postseason came, but he got them to the postseason. He really did. He had broken 100 bones in his foot playing in Utah on a broken foot. But to experience stuff like that was a really, really great year. And also I got to cover Carmelo Anthony's record-breaking scoring record when he had 62 points at the Garden. And that
what
was
a night that must have been.
That was great. Because you can't predict that. You're in the second round of the playoffs. Game 5, game 4, whatever the scenario is. You can't predict when somebody's going to break a record like that at home. And a guy whose favorite player growing up was Bernard King. He broke Bernard King's record. How does that happen? That was pretty cool to be there for that.
That within itself defines the epitome of sports right there.
Yes.
We'd love to see the Knicks get back on track and get back into the hunt of
I think
things.
they're in the right direction with Coach Thibodeau. Yeah, I really do. He's going to bring defense back. That's the difference. A lot of these coaches were trying to offense and trying a little offense in 7 seconds or less, and they were great coaches, and I loved all of them and getting the opportunity to meet and work with them. But I think you needed to bring the defense back, which was where Mike Woodson sort of had that team, and that's why they had that great season. It was a little more, priority on the defense.
I wanted to also ask you, I know that for one time you were a play-by-play announcer for the Olympic Games with Westwood One Radio. I mean, tell me a little bit about that, the Olympics.
So 2004, went to Greece for the Summer Olympic Games in Athens, and I was play-by-play for men's and women's gymnastics on radio. Had been a gymnast growing up, and that was probably still one of the most exciting. That and the Carmelo Anthony 62. Melo 62 hashtag, right? Those were my most exciting moments. It was Carly Patterson, the U.S. gymnast that was trying to become the first all-around gold medalist since Mary Lou Retton, who was a favorite athlete of mine. And no American gymnast had won the all-around gold since then. And we had the math, we were ready to go. She took the floor for her final routine, and we knew exactly the score she needed to get, and she blew it out of the water. And she just stuck every landing, and my analyst was Peter Vidmar, an Olympian himself. He was a gold medalist himself, and he taught me so much those 4 weeks I was there. And to see Carly win that gold, get the score, know she had the gold, call it on, we were live. That call was used in highlights for a couple of days after. It was really an amazing experience.
And certainly one that you will never, ever forget,
Yeah.
I'm sure. Now, fast forward back to where we are today in the world of sports with this very difficult and challenging 2020. How would you describe, today's state of affairs in sports with the COVID pandemic, the impact it's had on it, and of course all of the other, social issues affecting sports today? And from your perspective as a broadcaster, who basically you're right in the thick of things.
So much to cover. There is, you've got the game scenario, and then you have the coronavirus, and then you have social justice and equality. So there is so much to cover in every single game. And even when we do like highlights on a Sunday or something like that for Sports Extra, it's what happened in the anthem, what happened in the game, because every injury, I think, for the first 8 weeks is predicated on a short preseason, which was from the coronavirus.
Absolutely, yeah.
And then there's just a straight up matchup and how the coaches prepare them and what athletes doing what and who made a mistake. So it's just so much to cover. I wish we didn't have social issues and, racism in America. It just breaks my heart seeing what so many people have gone through. And then what has happened, it stirs it up in a lot of these players that maybe experienced it younger, or their parents, or it's happening in their hometowns. That is heavy, that is heartbreaking. And then we are all talk about an equalizer, the coronavirus. I know many people that passed away. It's amazing when I meet people that don't even know somebody who got it. I'm like, okay, sit down, because I know people that died that were young, and some did not have underlying issues. So, and some did, but it just shows it's not fair. Like, why should somebody be cancer twice and then died of COVID? It's not going to be cancer, and then that zaps them. So, and the thing is, what scares me about sports, yes, we've seen athletes opt out because of high-risk situations, whether it's diabetes, again, cancer survivors like Nate Solder from the New York Giants, and their child has cancer. That's what scares me. Somebody passing it on, maybe a young 25-year-old, athlete could do great against it. You know what I mean? I didn't even, Kevin Durant, great example. Test positive.
Yeah.
He said I was a little sluggish, that was it. But maybe I was just tired because I was bored. Boom, 2 weeks he's done. But what if they're bringing it home and the wife passes it to her mother or goes to the store? I mean, that's what's so scary about this. So, but I'm very proud of sports, and I'm proud of the Big Ten, kind of like, let's reevaluate. Let's get this season started. Let's follow what the military academies are doing. Let's follow what the SEC is doing. Let's find a partner to help us test. Let's find financial partners. They just needed a little more time. So while it was stunning, and you agree, a lot of people agree, and I agreed with their shutdown at first too. Maryland, Rutgers were fans here. I cover them. I went to Maryland.
Yep.
So, but I'm also glad now they kind of took a step back. Let's start the end of October. So so there's just a lot to cover. But it's still sports, and in the end, there's a winner and a loser. And
That's
last
right.
night in overtime, I know people watch this at a later moment, but when the Islanders, the goal goes in, pass Varlamov, who probably had in regulation his most phenomenal game ever.
Please don't remind me.
Oh my goodness! Oh, that's right, you're an Islanders fan.
Since the age of 7.
Sports. Yeah. That's sports.
I mean, I knew we had a long road ahead of us, being when we were down 3-1, but when we won Game 5 and we made it to 3-2, and when we scored first last night, I'm like, we got this. We got the momentum.
Let them score again.
And then before you knew it, Tampa Bay had tied it up, and I'm like, and I just had a feeling that if we went into overtime, that the longer it went, of course, anything could happen. And,
I know, Tampa in overtime.
So. But the Islanders, needless to say, went down swinging. And, we have a good nucleus of young talent where I think, the
Wonderful
NHL
coach, Hall of Fame coach.
NHL is going to be hearing from the Islanders for a long time to come. The future is definitely bright for the Islanders, despite the heartbreaking loss last night. And nonetheless, being a hockey fan, I am looking forward to what I think is going to be an exciting, Stanley Cup final, which again, you'll be covering, I'm sure. So, and the important thing is we have a Stanley Cup final to look forward to.
Amazing.
Whereas a few months ago, we weren't so sure if we were going to get to this point.
NBA, NHL, WNBA, MLS, they did a very good job with those bubbles. A lot of those places are going to be in the red, but they took those chances, and I think it's people have jobs and livelihoods, so they did the best they could.
So much at stake, absolutely. And I got to ask you this: where would you like to take your career from here? Where do you see yourself 5 to 10 years from now?
I would hope just doing what I'm doing at regularly at a national level. I work a lot at CBS Sports Network, have hosted We Need to Talk with legends in the business, with Leslie Visser and Andrea Kramer, and then just legends in sports like Dara Torres and Lisa Leslie, and another legend, Tracy Wolfson, from the sidelines. So, that's what I would hope. I have a full-time national job, and I love pregame, postgame, or an interview type show. That's what I really enjoy doing. And even through this whole pandemic, it was difficult, yet it was a little easier for me to get guests, because then, a player like Jeff McNeil, all right, on his couch, turns his phone on, does a Zoom interview.
There you go.
Because so that he, it's not like he's at a game, has to come into the studio, or it takes away from their day. It's 5 minutes out of their day on their couch. Yeah. Garrett Temple from the Brooklyn Nets, same thing. He just sat down at his table like this, turned on his Zoom, 30 minutes talking about him going for his law degree and civil rights and his grandfather and racism he endured in Louisiana, and so it was because he was comfortable, he was in his own home. So I would love to continue doing those types of interviews, and hopefully bring that to a grander scale, regular scale. Maybe a show like that on Fox 5 that's different from Sports Extra. It's just like one person in their house or something. So we'll see. And
I'm sure you will definitely get that opportunity. There's not a doubt in my mind. And speaking of, getting to know some of these athletes and stars on a more personal level, as we kind of, bring this great interview to a close, let's take a moment to kind of get to know Tina Cervasio on a little bit more of a personal level, beyond what we already know, if I may. This is what I call, you are about to be cessified.
Okay.
Okay, so loaded question. I don't know how you're going to be able to pin this down, but I'm going to take a shot. Favorite sport overall?
Football.
Okay. Needless to say, everything you covered
Grew
before.
up, yeah, grew up play. Yeah, I love it. I love it. I love covering it.
Favorite all-time broadcaster overall?
Leslie Visser. There's other great ones, but she was like
Yeah,
the
of
first.
course,
Yeah.
of course. Favorite musician?
My favorite musician would be, see, I'm so into sports, like I don't obsess with music and things like that. I mean, right now I just love Lady Gaga. She does everything. She writes, she composes, she plays her instruments, and what a voice.
Yes, yes, indeed. What about favorite group, favorite band or group?
Growing up as Bon Jovi, come on. Still is.
Favorite hobby outside of course, your love of sports and everything?
Traveling. Yeah, not doing a lot of that right now.
No, needless to say.
So my husband and I have been planning, you know what I mean? So, once we're cleared, what can we do?
Absolutely. And speaking of that, favorite place to travel to?
Italy.
I knew you were going to say that. I knew you were going to say that. Favorite movie?
Love A League of Their Own.
Classic.
Yeah. Can't, like, if I ever see that it's on TV, I'm watching it. Yeah, that would be the pinpoint one.
Good, good. Favorite food?
Cheese.
Okay.
But like all the variations.
Of course, of course. So much to choose from when it comes to cheese. Favorite tradition?
I think Christmas Day with my family. 7 courses. Now my sister has Christmas Day because she has the kids at home,
Yep.
so we go. Yeah, I just love Christmas Day with my family.
There's nothing like Christmas.
Yeah.
Well, Tina, let me say thank you once again. This has been an amazing experience having the opportunity to sit down with you, and I can't thank you enough for being able to take time out of your very busy schedule to allow me to come into your beautiful home here and for us to sit here and talk about your incredible career and sports and everything. I've had such a wonderful time, and I thank you so very much for being a part of Cessa's Corner, and I look forward to perhaps collaborating with you down the road, and perhaps some opportunities will come our way where we can work together in some way, shape, or form. Again, you're a major inspiration for me, and I thank you so much once again. I wish you all the very best for continued success at Fox and wherever you may head to in the future.
Thank you.
And I look forward to Sports Extra and everything else, to come down the pike for you and for sports as a whole.
Yeah. Well, Cessa's Corner is great, and good luck to you, and congratulations on all you have achieved and created with this.
Thank you very much. Folks, once again, please, if you have not already, check us out on YouTube. My channel is Anthony M. Cessa. Please subscribe. We appreciate everyone's ongoing support for Cessa's Corner. And Tina, thank you so much once again.
Thank you for your interest.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you. I wish you all the best. Thank you so very much.
Cheers.
Yes, cheers.
Let's do it.
Salud.
Salute.